It is part of the stage show Strictly Ballroom. The man who brought the movie to life and is now bringing the stage show to life, movie director Baz Luhrmann. Mr. Luhrmann, good afternoon.
I'm very happy to be here, Tom, and it is a beautiful afternoon.
It is. You haven't got Cyndi Lauper in the stage show, have you?
No, she's actually got her own stage show, Kinky Boots, on Broadway at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So everyone's in the musical business.
Is it hard taking a movie like Strictly Ballroom, which is an Australian classic, and putting it on stage?
I don't know about being hard. One thing I was talking about this morning was that audiences, when a film like that connects, and it's been around such a long time, they own it. You know, it's a bit like having a child. You know, you give birth to the child, you look after it, it grows up, but at some point you hear from them once they've remarried and they say, "Hi, remember me? I'm your parents." You know, and the big thing is that this production is very like the movie. Only the movie danced, this also dances and it sings. So the big change is there's a whole lot of singing, dancing numbers.
Well, for those of you who do want to see it, and many of you will want to, it's premiering Saturday, January 17th. That's this coming Saturday at Her Majesty's Theatre here in Melbourne. Is Melbourne the first location for this performance?
No, we did a run in Sydney, which we did very well at. And I have to say this, I mean, one thing about live stage musicals, you know, I remember Andrew Lloyd Webber told me, you know, when he did Cats, you know, Memories wasn't in it. So they grow as you keep moving them, and I've been working on it since then. So the Melbourne audience will see a show that's specific to the theatre here, and there are some new numbers in it.
Okay, now you've directed many successful movies, Strictly Ballroom back in 92, now on the stage, Romeo and Juliet in 96, Moulin Rouge it was 2001.
I know.
14 years ago.
Right. Let's not talk about numbers and age, okay.
Australia, starring Hugh Jackman, of course, and Nicole Kidman, The Great Gatsby in 2013. They've all been highly successful films. Why is it, though, that so many Australian films get ignored by the Australian film-going public? Not your films, but other films.
I mean, I think ultimately there are films that connect and there are films that don't. I do think that there are many good Australian films that maybe could have been communicated in a better way sometimes, and I'm very personally involved in making sure. That's why I go out there and do this. This is why, I mean, I love talking to you, Tom. I really do. But I'm out here because I think when so many people give so much to a production, you've really got to be actively involved in going out and inviting an audience in. You know?
I've heard that, unfortunately, when they make Australian films, there was one set in a prison recently which had a wonderful cast, but I can't remember the name. Right. They had no money for marketing, and that's, you know, what budget there is spent on, you know, on the shoot itself, and not on marketing.
But you know what? We had no money for marketing the original Strictly Ballroom, and let me tell you, the critics in Australia were not kind to the film of Strictly Ballroom.
Yeah, but the audience loved it.
Exactly. So I always see, I mean, my wife and I, Catherine Martin, personally did the poster. We used to go out, when we were in Cannes, we were up painting the shop fronts, hanging up banners, and we still do it. When people give so much to making an Australian film, it's such a risk, or a stage show, that we see it as our job to get out there and do everything we can to jump over all of that, you know, all of that business, and get directly to the audience. And that's what we're here in Melbourne doing.
You mentioned your wife, Catherine Martin. Now, I did a bit of research on the weekend. She's a production designer. She does a lot of the costume designs and other things on your movies. She has won 4 Academy Awards.
It's crushing to live with a woman like that. I mean, I go in. Have you ever been to breakfast and have to stare through 4 Oscars to see your wife? It's not pretty. It's not easy, you know.
Is it? I mean, but is your professional partnership as opposed to your private one? Is it a match made in heaven? I mean, do you just see eye to eye on movies? Do you bounce off each other?
It's kind of all we've ever known. I mean, I met Sam a certain part along the way, but we certainly have an invisible, private, perfect language like that. I mean, and you know, I have the visual language part of it is something that, I mean, I'm involved in all aspects of it, but I think that particular part of our work is really a highly attuned partnership. Yeah.
I was in America recently, and I had a chat with a friend of a friend who's in the sort of talent management business, mainly TV, not so much movies. But he said, "Oh, you know, we love Aussies here in Los Angeles. You know, Hollywood. They're great. They work hard. They're, you know, Hugh Jackman." But I mean, the thing is, do you think, does Australia sort of punch above its weight in Hollywood, or do we just think that because
No, absolutely. I tell you, maybe more recently, but there was a time I remember, I mean, for the population of Australia to have as many openers, meaning actors you can actually say starring globally, as many directors, as many creatives, we way punch above our weight. And I think that is a great, that's a great testament to our forefathers who went, we should have an opera house. We should have a drama school. We should have a film school. We should believe in the arts. You've got to think, when we were doing the opera house, we were on the edge of the world. And because of that, we really do have artists and creatives and storytellers and filmmakers that play all around the world. And, you find it hard to match that outside of America. You really do.
More with Baz Luhrmann in a moment. Your calls as well, 96900 693. It's 18 to 4. Well, Baz Luhrmann is with me, very notable Australian film director. If you want to go and see Strictly the Ballroom, the musical on at Her Majesty's Theatre as of next Saturday, go to www.strictlyballroomthemusical.com, or if that's too much for you, tickytick.com.au. Now, Mr. Luhrmann, amongst other things, you've done Australian tourism ads.
Yes.
Now, I remember, and everybody remembers, Paul Hogan's ones in the early 80s and the shrimp on the Barbie. It was successful. You did one, I think, was it the series after the Lara Bingle ones?
Yeah, it was after Lara's. I didn't actually make it. I conceived it, and it was around the time of Australia.
And is it? How do we sell Australia? Not just movies, but how do we sell Australia the place to overseas tourists?
I mean, I think our fundamental ethos is what we sell, and it's a place of enormous open-heartedness, and it's definitely a place for, the thing that was so great about the Paul Hogan one was he so, in the simplest way, expressed the great outdoors ethos that we are, and the ease at which we live.
But is that what it is? I mean, for example, we grab any statistic here in Melbourne that says that more tourists are coming here and they're coming for our
and they should
laneway culture and food.
The great shopping. I used to steal away when I was a kid to Melbourne for these things, but it's absolutely true. I mean, I was in China yesterday in a blizzard. Right? And I can tell you that a lot of the Chinese come to Melbourne, shopping awesome, food awesome, theatre awesome. I mean, one thing Melbourne has is, it's like the West End. We don't have in Sydney a series of streets where it's not just Strictly Ballroom, which is opening on Saturday night. Right next door, there'll be other shows. So it really is like the West End out there. It's got those qualities.
Okay, so it's not just beaches and Ayers Rock and the Great Barrier Reef anymore.
I think it's diversity. And it's ease, and it's also, there's a joy and a fun about it,
Now, on a completely separate issue, you're known as being quite a dandy, a very good dresser.
Well, I don't know. I got a blue shirt and a jacket.
Well, I've got a T-shirt and a pair of shorts on.
All right, okay.
Now, again, my research tells me your mother was a ballroom dancer and a seamstress. Your father was a farmer. Did either or both of those contribute to your dress sense?
Well, actually, my mother was a ballroom dance teacher, and she still is. My father was in the Vietnam War. We had a farm and a gas station after that, but he was really the equivalent. He was a clearance diver. They were snappy dresses, you know what? Growing up doing ballroom dancing as a kid, my father actually was really focused on dressing well, and we suffered for it because in those days it was the 70s. Everyone had really long hair, and Dad had us with the short hair, and we hadn't had ties, and so I think I've probably been brought up in a culture where making sure you comb your hair is part of the way you present yourself.
Does Paul Mercurio have any role in the stage version of Strictly Ballroom?
No, he doesn't. I mean, I'm 52. We all get on. We can't, forever. But the young man who's playing that role, I mean, Paul's wonderful, but the young man who's playing that role, he has to dance and sing. And I got to say, our two leads are extraordinary. You've got Heather Mitchell, who I think is giving one of the great performances ever seen on the Australian stage, and whatever is being said critically about our shows, and there are always diverse opinions, people have been dancing in the aisles. I mean, they're always dancing in the aisles at the end of the show.
So the show went well in Sydney?
Yeah, I mean, I always think if you can't get people out of the theatre, which we used to have trouble doing, it must be, playing.
That's a good sign.
Not bad.
Nicole Kidman, she starred in two of your films, Moulin Rouge and, of course, Australia. What's she like to work with? Because you hear mixed things. Some people say she's a bit of an ice queen. Others say no, she's absolutely wonderful.
No. Look, she's a friend, but even if I wasn't her friend, as a person, the strength of the center of that woman is incredible. If you are in a difficult situation, she is at her absolute best. And she's funny. What people don't get about Nicole is that she's a very funny person. One of the things about her I always remember early on is that if she's in a room, because she's quite tall, she always goes out of her way to make the person who's most uncomfortable comfortable.
No, good, but that'd be me. Government support for movies. Now, in the 70s, which some say was the heyday of Australian film, you had the Mad Max movies, the Cars That Ate Paris, Alvin Purple.
We've had a few heydays. There's been a bit of hay.
Well, it was probably, maybe that was the wrong term. But
I know what you mean, Tom.
Tom,
I know what you mean. I grew up then, I took it for granted. When you had Gallipolis and all those films, I just took it for granted that we had this grand and extraordinary film industry, which is not always the case.
We had a lot of public funding back then. I mean, you had Film Victoria, Film New South Wales, Film Australia, and lots of money was pumped into movies. Yeah. Do you think governments could or should do more to keep film making in this country going?
The most important thing is this rebate business, which people do not understand. The tax rebate. What they don't understand about that is that every other, not just country, but every other city does it. And you're not actually pumping money in. What you're doing is the money comes in, $50 million comes in, $100 million comes in, and you give back some of the tax you pay out. But the people who get paid still get taxed. So I think you need that support. I really think it's important that governments support startup film, young talent, new ventures, not middle range, but really, because that's how Strictly Ballroom got made. Strictly Ballroom, the film, would not have got made without some government support.
Have you enjoyed Strictly Ballroom way back in 1992 when it first came out? Hard to believe, 23 years ago now. Go and see the musical. It's on at Her Majesty's Theatre at premieres this coming Saturday, January the 17th. Go to strictlyballroomthemusical.com or tickytech.com.au. Baz Luhrmann, good luck with the Melbourne audiences.
Thank you, Tom. We are releasing tickets, I think, more tickets next week. I mean, it's the first bunch sold out, but that is good, but we're releasing more next week. So I hope to see you dancing in the aisles, Tom. I will.
Not something you'd want to see, but I will give it a go. Baz Luhrmann there. 96900 693 13 13 32. Back to calls shortly at 7 to 4.